Well, a few people haven't joined us, but I think we should start. Um, Nancy, again, thank you so much for being the
Of
facilitator.
course.
And
Of
we're going
course.
to start with Megan Steinberg of Steinberg HR. And if you have any HR questions right now, why don't you either raise your hand or let us know what your issues are. And I know that Megan has all the answers or knows where to get them if she doesn't.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Let's not
Yeah,
get too
good luck.
crazy, Pam. That's a tall order.
Right, right.
Well, if I don't have the answer, I know where to find it.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
Well, thank you. Good morning. Good to see you all. I hope that you're doing well. It's been some time. Yeah, I would really love to open up to you really of what have you been seeing? Where do you feel like you need as far as people, culture, systems? What have you been dealing with and where do you feel like you're hitting some barriers or questions that you have or you need more clarity on things?
I think a lot of people, it starts with just the ability to even find people. Is anybody on the screen hiring and struggling to find staff? I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's no magic there, but I think, what's the trick or what's the secret sauce to some people getting good people and keeping people versus, people that are experiencing just like we see it all obviously in the amount of offices that we touch, how many people just don't show up, don't come back. And we can see sometimes the why of it, but it's sometimes really hard to get people to look in the mirror and see, why don't people want to stay here? It's not that they're, someone said to me the other day, everybody out there, they're all idiots. And I thought to myself, probably not start, so it's hard. I think people are really struggling just to get people. And I think I'd love to speak to, what do you think makes people say yes to one and not the other? Is it the money? Is it the benefits? Is it like, what do you think people are looking for that would make it easier for some that are really struggling?
Well, with all due respect, I don't think that they're idiots. I think that it's a fact of finding a home that fits you right.
Yeah.
Right. So, and it's perception. And if we're not clear on what the expectations are, then it's always going to be missed. So that's where it's like, well, then what am I doing here? And that's where the level of frustration really builds up. So, I think recruiting, I know it's a skill and it's an art, and it takes time because it's the most important part of building your organization. And you have 2 hours, depending on what your process is. Some people it's an hour, they come in, they interview, oh yeah, that's great, let's hire them. Like it's such a short amount of time to really assess, is this person the best person for this organization? Are they going to bring a skill set? Do they, it's one thing to be the sender and the receiver of questions that are going back and forth, but what's in the belly of that? And do they really understand that? So first, what I would look at is what is your process? We, our firm goes in a lot of times, and especially now of like mapping out what do you currently do? Like, how do you attract people? What do those efforts look like? How do you interview them? What is the process of interviewing? Who's involved in that interview process? What are the questions that you're asking? Are they consistent? Do you do practical assessments? And then moving on to what does your onboarding look like? So you can identify the person, then it's your onboarding. It's the candidate experience, and that experience is going to pull into the organization once you start onboarding them and orienting them. And then we move into that whole aspect of it, of how you're going to retain them once they're there. I think Nancy, you had just said that, or somebody was just saying, like, to really understand the why. You think about some of your best employees that just, they've got it figured out. Why is that? What is it that you did with this? A lot of it is going to be them as an individual, but the other piece is what's drawing them to be successful. what are the attributes that they have? What are the competencies that they have? And can that be replicated as you move through your interview process? Another big thing I was just saying is to really create relationships with organizations that know you and know what the expectations are. Just an example, when I was in-house HR, similar to I worked in hospitality and food service. So I worked at Boston University for Aramark, and we would have really great turnover, nature of the industry, and then because of the cyclical, university calendar. And, we would have job fairs that just started to we weren't getting great quality. So what we did was create relationships. We had a whole list. We had like a brainstorming session. What are all the different organizations that we can partner with and we can get that do job placement maybe, that can also diversify us, and made a whole list of that and went out to them and said, here are our job descriptions. Here's what our locations look like. Some might be appealing to other ones. And it wasn't so much at that point the quantity of who was applying, it was the quality of people. And with it took a little bit. I'm not saying it takes time, and I know everybody's very busy. However, it's so worth it at the end, because as you have those relationships, you can call up and say, hey, I've got this open position. They know it already. I even had people come to the university and do tours and say, this is what a retail outfit looks like. This is what a residential where you're feeding thousands of people. This is a Starbucks. Like, people may be attracted to different things, so they actually knew what it felt like and what it was like there. And that's just, that always sticks out. And we ended up doing actual interview days. That's another thing that you can post out there to all these different sites on social media, reach out to these organizations and say, I'm going to be having an interview day. However, before that happens, I want to screen all the resumes that come in. And then you have maybe 15 people that show up. And of course, some people aren't going to show up. So you say 10 people that show up that you can have an actual interview with. And how we modeled it is that during that time, they would meet with the manager, they would maybe meet with a peer that we had already, filled out all the, figured out all the logistics. And then they would meet with HR, whoever was the decision maker, and we provided a contingent offer at that point because it went through the process. And it just really helped with, again, getting that quality of people that are in there and being able to hire. The other thing is really looking at your questions, behavioral questions and situational. How many of you know the difference between those two? If you're asking a behavioral question versus a situational. You can take yourself off. It's a small group. So
I think I do. I mean, I went from my past, from being an office manager where, as you speak to building relationships and an office setting, building relationships with the families, with the patients. And now as a recruiter, now I'm building relationships with practices, office managers and such. And so there is that behavioral and situational difference of building that relationship. So you have to ask those different types of questions of, why is someone not onboarding, for me, choosy, right? And so I see the different aspects of, recruiting, whether it be in an office standpoint, like recruiting an employee, what questions, in my mind, what would I ask to onboard an employee as to calling on a practice to onboard them as a provider with Choosy. So I think, given my experience throughout the years, I think I do look at them differently.
Yeah, and I think I hear you, and what I hear from you is the transferable skills.
Right.
And that's so, what's your first name?
Judy.
Judy, that is so critical. And especially right now, because so many industries have been impacted. But the hospitality industry, you look at certain industries that have been really, really impacted. You take those people, you think about it, their customer service should be like top notch because of what they're doing. So how can you take those transferable skills and parlay that into what some of the jobs you need skill set. I get that, but what's teachable, what's transferable, and you prove that with your how you moved from position to position, and you were able to apply what you have done to a different set and use that skill set. Anne Marie, what were you going to say about behavioral and situational?
Basically, it's very similar, that the behavioral is, what their characteristics, what their background brings to the job. Are they teachable? Do they bring a good attitude? You can teach skills, but you can't teach attitude.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And
Does
Lynn,
anybody-
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
I just want to add this in the chat. Lynn, who doesn't have a microphone today, mentioned that if you're looking for part-time, a lot of people are collecting. And I see that in some of the people that I have in my family, that if it's a part-time job or if they collect right now, they can collect way more. And we saw this early on too, that that extra, whether it's $300 or $400 a week that they're getting now,
Yeah.
way over what they would get working part-time. So that's,
Yeah.
that's been a conundrum right along.
Right.
Yeah, and I have to say, like in the industry, like I had started working in practices when I was 19, and I worked my way up. But the main reason I left working in the practice was because they weren't giving me what I wanted. So I was working 30, 40, 60 hours a week, and for a base pay, and you got your minimal, sick time and a little vacation, but you didn't get your 401ks, you didn't get your insurance, and you didn't get that type of needs that you wanted. So I think in the dental industry, if you start speaking to a lot of office staff and office managers, I feel that, people jump. And people jump because, one, they don't get the benefits, they don't get those things that they need. And so they feel that in jumping, they're getting those hourly wages to kind of make up for those benefits that they're not getting. So as they're getting those positions that are higher in pay, they feel that it's somehow going to make up for what they're not getting currently.
Yeah.
And when you speak to a lot of people, I think you kind of realize that, and I think that's one of the major reasons people jump.
And I think so yes, that's a barrier with the unemployment and that. However, it's what we're dealt, right? So then how do we come up with solutions for it? And again, I think you're right on that. I mean, I literally talked about this morning with somebody. We're about to make an offer, but yesterday I called the candidate and said, great interview. We've made it to the final. If the company chooses to extend an offer to you, what is most important to you? Like, what, you had a great experience, get that, both sides think it's a good fit, but what's really important to you? You're already employed right now. What makes you really happy? Is it the benefits? Is it vacation? Is it sick time? Like, everybody has a different story, right? And what they're dealing with and what is important. And, they had said, oh, it's vacation. I travel the world, and why take one trip a year? I always pick a different spot to go to. And I know going into a new company, it's 2 weeks. Would I be able to get a little bit more? If I didn't ask that question, so now we can go into it and I can say, hey, we usually give 1 week. We'd love to offer you. We think it's a great fit. I hear you that you like to take vacation. It's important to the organization that you do that as well. And it's some companies can do this, some can't, but we're going to offer you the 2 weeks of vacation and this, and hopefully. And that just shows, like, right out of the gate, like, you heard me and you understand what's important to me. Do you see that, like, subtle, instead of it just being like automatic, I'm giving you an offer, here you go. It's like, get to know them a little bit more. And that's what will make you stand out a bit more too. Go ahead, Sue.
Just going to say, so you're speaking a bunch of dental offices, and I think our current situation is unique in that there aren't a lot of, there's a fewer number of people that want to work, I think. And the ones that do, I think there's such a demand for them. Things are happening very quickly. You don't have that time to be like, okay, let me get a few candidates. Let's talk about this, go back. Things are happening so fast that you're almost afraid to lose the good candidate, and anybody can look good for that initial brief interview. It's a very difficult situation, I think, in the dental offices for recruiting.
Yeah. And that's where that interview, and every situation is going to be different, right? So what fit and what may fit right now may not fit in 3 months from now. But Sue, to your point, I found that in the hospitality, where it's like the quality people would just go, like, how many places could you go at the time? This is pre-COVID. And that's why we came up with the interview day. So we could be really smart about the questions that we're asking. We're all on the same page with what are we hitting as far as questions, technical questions, organizational questions, that you have a couple different people that are asking those. And if everybody's saying yes and you're rating them, then they come to that last person. I knew when they came to me at the end of that I was making them an offer. And I would put my HR lens, but I would say, hey, we want to offer you a position. We don't want to lose you. Here's a contingent offer based on reference check, background, whatever you do. This is what the rate of pay is going to be. So there's no question. Here's the benefit summary, and I'll be in touch in 48 hours and fill everything out right now. So I can send you your official offer letter, and I'll process everything. So that was literally for that very reason, because we couldn't afford to have, Boston College be getting these folks with, so it just may be something to try out. And the other nice thing about interview days, like I think about your office, is you can make it an experience. You can have people, and the weather's nicer, you can have a little seating area outside. Again, even if it's 5 people that are showing up, it goes to what you are like as an employer. You can maybe have a little coffee and say, all right, this is what the process is going to be. They can see what the location looks like. Is it clean? Are people friendly? What can I picture myself here? So Angela, yes.
Yeah. So I am looking for a couple dental assistants, and I place ads on Indeed, and I did have a lot of resumes. I schedule a lot of people to come in, and some of them, they showed up. Some of them, they didn't even bother calling to say they weren't going to show up.
Of course.
So I come across to one girl, and I did ask kind of like similar questions that you advising. And her answer to me is like, I'm trying to make the extra buck, and I am trying to get as much as I can right now because I know we are on high demand. I am happy at my job, but I'm just trying to see what else I can get out there.
Yeah.
So I look at her, and then I told her I will call her back and talk to her. But as an assistant, I felt like I don't think she will be the right person.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's not that many people to choose from, but and then I say, if I give her the whatever she's looking for, and then, I mean, she's going to do this again.
And Angela, but I shouldn't say, but I don't like using but because I feel like it's a little negative, but it's Friday. I haven't had my full cup of coffee. You asked the question though. If you didn't ask that, how are you even going to find out?
Right.
She walked into what your question was. And so you have your answer, which is I would think the same thing. Like she's going to go up the street and ask the same question in 3 months, and then I'm not going to have one. So because of the question that you asked, you got an answer to educate you on what decision you were going to make. Right. So I mean, I understand that. I'm sure there's plenty of people that are out there doing that.
I just don't want to follow for the spread. Like I love the team that I have. I love every single one. I make sure that I support them. I'm making sure that I take care of them. That way they are not in the same boat looking somewhere else picking. I'm making sure that I am related to the new people that we are trying to build a team. I am not just desperate looking for somebody just for an extra dollar or so.
Right.
like some of them, they, like at the end of the day, they just like, well, bottom line is how much you're going to offer me. And I just hate this part of the management, because it's like, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, welcome to management. This is the part they don't tell you about.
Oh yeah.
And I think the other thing that just came to mind too is, I don't know if you offer referral bonuses.
We do.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I think that we used to do it, I mean, all companies do it all different, but like give half of it up front. And then if they're there 6 months later, you give the remainder of it, so.
I have to tell you, as someone who does, I'm hiring all the time, hiring now, just saying, people want to work at home, but not you guys, but people you know, but we've worked really hard. So I have 28 employees, so it's a lot. I remember the days when I was by myself, and I sometimes long for those days, but I think one of the things that I am finding is something that I kind of already knew, but it's easy to have it go. We touch base with everybody on it's a very scheduled, regular basis. So we use Microsoft Teams. I call them, they come up on the screen, and I say, just checking in. How you doing? Listen, the work is the work, and it's not, I can't make the work better. Sometimes it's tough, and some of these offices, I could probably tell you stories you probably wouldn't think I was telling you the truth, what goes on out there in the building space. But yet, this is what I hear all the time. I get texts or messages all the time. Thanks for touching in. I feel so supported. Or the support, my newest hire said, I've never worked anywhere where I've had so much support. Now, we don't take that for granted. We make a schedule of, all right, who are we touching this week, right? Who are we going to make sure, between me and our manager, how are we going to touch base with people? And I think people like to know you care. People like to have a voice. And I say, what can we do better? Like, what would make your work easier for you? So I think it's hard in the course. I mean, in a dental office, you're just going from the minute you get there till the minute you leave. But if you can find a way on some, semi-regular basis to just say, hey, how you doing? You got everything you need? Can I help you out? I think people really want to feel supported. And I think
thank you goes a long way at the end of the day.
Yeah. And
Thanks for
they
being
don't
here.
always hear it from the doc, so it's the truth. So I know I worked in offices for most of my career. You don't get a lot of that. So, and sometimes that's why this group is so important, because, as the manager, and to your point, Angela, we're so busy taking care of all our people. And then at the end of the day, you turn around and you go, okay, wait a minute. Who's lobbying for me? So this is the support we need right here. But, and I want to tell you something else that's interesting to me. When we did our merger, and Mark and I were talking about what we're going to offer employees, he said, well, everybody gets their birthday off. I said, oh. He said, yeah, we've done that in my company for a long time. I said, okay. Well, I got to tell you, people love that.
They do.
Oh my God. When I tell them we get, we have 7 paid holidays and you get your birthday off. Really? It shocks me every time someone gets excited because they get their birthday off. And the interesting thing is, none of us have taken our birthday because nobody wanted a winter birthday during COVID. So I'm gonna get hit with all the birthdays are gonna be
The 6-month birthdays.
but it's just so funny to me so what it makes me feel like is certain things are expected, but sometimes that little unexpected. It doesn't even have to be grand. It doesn't have to be big. We do it. I'm sending gifts, food. I'm doing a lot of that to my team. It just seems to resonate because the work is hard, what we do in billing and cleaning up office messes and, trying to stay on top of it all. And sometimes you send them whoopie pies and it goes a long way,
We buy a cake for everyone's birthday on there, closest to me that they're at the office, which is nice. What is it? $25? Come on.
Right. But
Just
sometimes
celebrates
it's that
that
little
person.
unexpected, thank you for staying late last night. Here's an Amazon gift card. I don't know. I just think sometimes it's the things that people don't expect that, really resonate. But I am hearing a lot of that about the support. And I think Chris and I work really hard to make sure we do that as much as we can. And I think it's been really helpful to us. But we
Can I
are
ask Megan a quick question.
sure. Sue.
So I love that idea as well. And another office that I worked in offered that. But what, Megan, my question to you is, what if you have a person who doesn't celebrate birthdays? Like we had an employee who, there are certain religions it's like taboo. They don't.
Yeah, right.
So is that a weird thing to incorporate, or do they?
No, I think if that's something that they don't take advantage of, or if they've disclosed to you, like I don't celebrate any of the holidays and that, then you know what, maybe you make an exception for that person and say, then you take a day off for, you know, when you want it for whatever you choose to, and we'll call it that. So I think to make, if they're a one-off, I think that that's okay to make an exception. And all of you are small enough where it's not going to, you know, I always get concerned about like precedent and are you being fair, but I think that's something, you're being accommodating and you're being flexible and you're actually recognizing something that, you know, would be a great benefit for somebody, just you word it or do it a little bit differently for them.
And I'm going to just mention one other point I don't want to forget. You know, at one time, you know, we had an office, we had kind of our team there, and it's really hard for us to do in Zoom for my company because there's a lot of people that you know want to get in, and we can't train the same over Zoom that we could if we were sitting there. But my best employees today came from outside of dental. And you know what? They were grateful for the opportunity to learn a new skill. They were hungry. I don't know if we look at our team sometimes and think, where are my rock stars? Target, you know, waitress, you know, people who, you know, I just hired someone who said my multitasking skills came from my waitressing, my days as a waitress. So
Yeah.
I know it's hard for some positions, you know, but there are offices that are training dental assistants. You know, they're figuring that out. So don't lose sight of that opportunity. Again, find the attitude and the work ethic and teach the skill. If you can, you know, can't do that with a hygienist, but you know.
Well, I will say, I think what I'm going to do is do a little bit of digging for you because has anybody heard of Jewish Vocational Service? So it's one of the largest workforce development organizations in the Commonwealth, and they're fantastic. And I've worked with them. I've worked with them for engaging them with their services. And I actually worked with them in HR, which is funny, years later than I was working with them, and got to learn even more about all the different offerings that they have. And I'm just going to share this example because I thought it was really incredible. There's a shortage of, oh my gosh, in the hospitals, not nursing assistants.
AIDS.
Yeah, AIDS. AIDS. And so like Spalding and Brigham and all of it, they're like, we can't keep up, like we need it. And we can't fill these roles fast enough. And we can't get people don't want it. So what JVS did was actually create a program where they train people for 7 weeks. So they vetted the people, they sourced them, trained them. When they got through the training of the 7 weeks, it turned into a feeder for them for all the aides. And I think it started with Spalding and now they're doing it with all other hospitals. And so that's a very big, but I think about what you're struggling with right now, and they may that's one example of what they can do at a bigger scale, but they also do placement of all different organizations and companies. And so I'm going to reach out to some of the VPs there, and maybe that might be something, Pam and Nancy, for next month, to maybe have them just come and talk about their services. And I won't waste your time if they say, oh, I'm not sure. They look at like, what's the pay, how many open positions. They also look at transportation, just so they can see geographically, okay, where can I help support? So I'm happy to have a little bit more of discussion, and maybe they can even talk to one or two of you to see if it's worth them coming and having a greater, just to talk about it. But it's really, they're fantastic. I just want to end, so I know I started with what's behavioral and situational. So when I asked that about interviewing, there's actually, there is a difference. So behavioral are the examples you're asking an employee a candidate to describe what they've done in the past, to predict what they would do in the future, right? So to have them articulate what they've done, things, experiences and skill set that they actually possess and they've done. Situational is if I come in and you interview me and I've never worked in a dental office before, that you ask me, a situational question that happens in that environment that I haven't been exposed to, but I'm able to then articulate to you, what is it, how would I solve for the question that you're asking me? Does that make sense? So it's experience that you actually have versus experience that you don't. But what it gives you is you understand the thought process, you understand that transferable skills, and if they have the mindset that you need within the role. So one example with behavioral interview questions, it's a STAR component. Has anybody heard of that before? So a STAR component it's 4 parts. It's when you ask a question, you want to know what's the situation and the task. You want to hear this from the candidate. What action did they take and what were the results? So the background, you want to have the background and the context to which the person is acting on, what that person did in the situation and the effects that that person had, what action that they had and what was the outcome. And that's going to be a really good indicator for you to take a deeper dive into that person and what they're able to offer. And I'll just give a couple of examples that this is maybe some of you asked the question, what's your strength? What would you describe as your strength? How many of you asked that question in an interview? Right, so there's a lot. So a behavioral question, you ask that question, some people may say, I'm a really hard worker, I'm a really good communicator, I'm a great team player. A behavioral question would be, tell me about a project that required you to put in some extra effort to meet a deadline. Do you see the difference? That they're going to talk about what that strength is, but you're also going to use that STAR method to be like, okay, what was the situation? What did they do? What was the outcome? And that's going to articulate some of their strength that you'll be able to see.
Megan, could you write an article about this for our newsletter?
Sure.
Good. Because I think this sounds great, but not having the STAR in front of me is
interview
kind of
all
hard.
my candidates for me and find me some good people?
Sure, we can do that.
And yes, after you're done writing the article. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing I'm happy to do, and I'm just totally, I know it's recording, but I'm just throwing it out there. If you wanted to have a training session amongst all of you and like a collaborative, we can talk about that, but to help you, when you think about open-ended questions, same thing, I'll just give one more example of when you ask like about leadership, or, tell me about your leadership skills. And people will give the generic, I'm a great leader, I lead a team, and this is, maybe these are some of the things these are some of the attributes. But another question that you could ask to take it deeper is, give me an example of a situation where you took on a leadership role. Right? So just so you see, like when you ask the vanilla questions, you're going to get a vanilla response.
Mm-hmm.
But if you sit there.
How do you account for people that you can tell are, some of our great employees are quiet, they're a little uncomfortable, even on the Zoom. Like sometimes we'll make a joke thing on the Zoom and there'll be those people you can tell they're panicking, like they don't respond well. How do you assess that? When you're asking a question that scares someone, how do you figure that out?
It's partly them and it's partly you being open-minded, and it's not a race, right? So there are plenty of times where I've been in an interview and I can tell that, right? You can tell the nerves, and right out of the gate, you can say, listen, I think it's preparing them. Like, we're going to be on the call for about
Right.
60 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm going to be, especially with Zoom, I'm going to be taking some notes, just so you know, my eyes are going up and down, but I'm listening to you. I'm just taking a little bit of notes. I want you to know this is much of an interview for you as it is for me. So, you know, I hope that you have questions, and as we go through, let's have it be, you know, a conversation.
Sure.
I really want to hear about your questions towards the end. So you're teeing it up for them to kind of like, you're not just out of the gate, like, and I've been in interviews like that. I think we all have been, probably, right? So you want to be able to do that. And then if you notice that, I've had people pause. One question I ask, if I pulled all your managers together, what is one word they would use to describe you? And why? And it throws them, because I'm not asking them, what do they think about themselves? I'm asking them what their managers would say about them. And so it causes pause a little bit. And so I've said to people, because they're like, oh, geez, that's a hard question. I don't know. And I'm like, you know what? Let's move on to another question and we'll come back to it. And if you have an answer, great. And if not, that's okay. So I think it's all about the approach of the experience that you're giving them, so they feel as comfortable to the extent that they can be.
And I mean, at least to me, I think it's impactful, but I just want to confirm that with you. So for people on the screen who are struggling to find people, the interviewing process, if you're lucky enough to get people to show up, the interviewing process can really be impactful on a candidate's decision to say a full, 100% yes to you. It's not like, I think sometimes it feels like it could be a throwaway. You just want to see them. You kind of want to hear if they can speak clearly, but the impact of a good interview, it is very high. I think if we could hone our skill better, it would probably benefit in the big picture, that we might attract a different kind of candidates, or people may really come on board that we're happy to have, because we've done a better job in the interviewing process.
Yeah. And I think, like, you were all talking about some of the different things that make you, like Kim, you said, we get cakes for everybody during, on their birthdays, and, send things out. We send the whoopie pies out, and those are all, to me, if I had a candidate and it was competitive, that I would, if I really liked them, I went through can I spend a few minutes just letting you know about some of the things that we do here that may be different from some other organizations that you work at? Right. We do this, they love it. We have, happy hour, I don't know, whatever you do that makes you want to stay at your job, right? That always put yourself on the other side of the table. If somebody said to me, went through that with me, and I can picture myself in that work environment, that's what's going to get it. If I can picture it, it's just like if you're looking at colleges, or you're looking at a house, like, can you picture yourself here? You spend half your life at your job.
I think you're interviewing them, but they're also interviewing you. It's a two-way street, so you want to put your best foot forward and present your office, your company as, hey, this is what we do, and this is why we want you here. And then they're interviewing you as well as you're interviewing them.
Yeah. And I will say that I've taken a step back from the primary interview, because I want people to talk to my team. So I have 2 team members that have been doing the interviewing, because I want them to be able to talk about me and the way I run the company and why they work so hard for me. And, they say things like, if she, when we get a new puppy, Nancy sends us a gift certificate for puppy food, or whatever I've done in the past. They can say that where it sounds a little different coming from them. So I think that I do the initial one, and then they spend time with my 2 key team members rather. So again, it's all a function of how that works in your dental office, and if there is any, but it's a good idea to let them, have access to more than just you.
I have a question. So I'm not a manager. We don't have a manager in our office, and we work fine, but it's all women. So it's tough. And I can see the people in our office have been there forever. I'm one of the newbies, and I've been there 9 years. And the only thing that rolls over is the assistants. So the front desk, they've been there 20 years, 30 years. All the hygienists have been there, but it's the assistants. And right now we have a great assistant. And I can tell that one of the girls that has been there a really long time is kind of a bully. And like, gives her the shit jobs, whatever. And I feel like we're gonna lose her. But like I say, it's not my place. I'm not a manager. We don't have a manager, but I'm kind of the tattletale sometimes when I feel like I have to stick up for somebody. So I'm just about to go in and say something to the boss, but I don't know how to say it when it's not really my business. And I just think there's two girls. One's really new, so I don't know if she's super, super great, but she, you know, she speaks 3 other languages. So it's always great to have that, especially when we're in Quincy. There's just so many different people coming in and I can't understand them on the phone. You know, A for apple, B for them. Their name is this long. And I go, oh my God. But we have these people that are so diverse and so great. And I feel like we might lose 2 of them. And I'm so bummed out.
So my advice would be to go talk to the boss like yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For so many different reasons. I mean, I think it sounds like you've got your finger on the pulse. So one, I would say, hey, I think that we need a lead person. How many people are at your organization?
16.
Yeah, I think, hey, is it time that we maybe talk about, I know this is being recorded, but that there's a lead person and that
Oh,
maybe,
shoot, this is being recorded. I gotta be off of that. Hope he watches it. I don't have to say anything.
I know,
There you go.
because just with our, Pam, I think you know this, but with, you might need to splice this recording. I'm just thinking. Just in general, some of the things that we've talked about, just out of respect. But, you know, I think it's an opportunity maybe for you to say, whether it's something you may be interested in or somebody else may be interested in, that there should be a lead so people can come, especially with the organization, 16 employees, like that people can come and address any issues that they may be having.
I kind of like that there's no boss, like no other, besides the doctors, they're your boss and that's it. I don't hate it.
But
You're
I
a team.
also think, who do they have to go to? Like, who do people have to go to? If they're not going to be an advocate for themselves, then who do
Come
they
to
go
me.
to? Do they go to the boss? So-
Yeah, and I don't mind sticking, like I have a hard time sticking up for myself. Like it's very uncomfortable for me, but I can do it for any of you. Like I don't mind that at all.
So I think you need to say you should say something to the doctor if that's who the head is. I would
Yeah.
also recommend honestly looking at somebody who is on the ground that can be the person that they come to if that's you, but just call it out. And the risk of losing. My other suggestion would be if maybe the doctor would say, have check-ins with some of them or with all of them to say, hey, I want to see how you're doing. I know that these roles can be really difficult. Thank you so much for all that you've been doing. Maybe the doctor just needs to be coached on that.
Yeah.
I want to and have him ask the same questions to all of them. Maybe it's 3 or 4 questions like, how's your experience been? It's been a really tough year. You know, we don't want to lose you. How, you know, what can we do to retain you and to make sure that you're doing the great work that you're proud of and that we love to have you do here? So I think to maybe coach the doctor, but I think a check-in, you can let them know what's going on, and then a check-in with each of them. And then whomever's being the bully, that's a whole other.
Well, that part too, like, I don't know if he's asked her to step and keep an eye on these 2 newer people. But
But you
again,
can say, I
like
feel
that's the
like
only
those-
thing that turns over in our office. So I don't know if that's, you know,
Yeah.
common in everyone else's office when there's so many women in there. I don't know. Why is the assistant?
I mean, if
so-
you have a bully, you know, that's when you get the turnover and you have a bully.
Yeah, and
And
maybe
people
yeah,
see that, and this is what I always say, your A players don't get the C players to rise up. The A players get tired of doing it all and then they tend to, you know, it tends to regress more than the
Yeah, I
other
don't wanna
way
see
around.
that. Yeah.
You can't keep those C players and let them get away with it.
But I think definitely if anybody's being treated disrespectfully or in a way that's not right, like that needs to be addressed immediately, regardless. I mean, I always say, if you see something, say something, you know in your gut if something isn't right, regardless of what your role is. And whether it's harassment, discrimination, bullying, it doesn't matter if it's lawful or unlawful. It matters that you address it and it stops.
Okay. Well, that just gave me the
my
push,
opinion.
so I will.
Okay. I'm gonna
Thank
call him.
No, I might need a job next week. No.
I hire you.
I've been a little bit quiet today. Sorry, guys. But I just wanted to say, when you were saying about a particular department with a lot of turnover, for us, it's our admin team, actually.
Really?
And a lot of the reason is they're looking for room to grow. And there's only so much potential for upward mobility in the office. So they come in, they're pretty young and they start at a lower rate, and we give them promotions and go from patient coordinator to treatment coordinator and financial coordinator. But there's only one financial coordinator, one manager, and the rest of them want other opportunities. And it feels like it's a good job short term for them, but then they want to do something else with more opportunities.
How many employees do you have
In the admin or all together?
altogether?
So we have 19 employees that are hourly, and then we have 7 associates, so 26 total.
And then how many in the admin?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we just hired another person, so 6.
And is there leveling within the admin team or no?
Yes, there is. So there's the patient coordinators, and
Okay,
then
that's-
above them are the treatment coordinators, and then we have the financial coordinator.
And when they get to financial coordinator, or where do you see, is it just all across the board that you see turnover in that?
It's mostly the patient coordinators and treatment coordinators.
Yeah. I would use the same, you and I could certainly talk offline and just kind of tease that out a bit, but I would use the same method of talking to them and talking to them even before they get in the door of, listen, this is what the leveling is. This is what the career path is. These are the things that we're going to do. And it may be, you invest in developing them with the certification or so, like you just to get, again, like, what is it that they're yearning for? Do they want to be an expert in Excel? Do they want to learn how to use, I don't know, X system, or what is it that's going to drive them? And maybe that's something that you can build into your offerings that you give them. So we could get creative and just thinking of different things. And I would have focus groups with them.
Okay.
And I would do those check-ins just so you have your finger on the pulse so much more. And it's like, and you can just adapt and tweak what you're doing. We did this. I'm going to stop with this because I've been talking for an hour. We've been talking for an hour, although it's been great. An example of this is we were looking at another company, we were looking at benefits because open enrollment is coming about. And so, you go through the same process for open enrollment. And I'm like, why don't we look at this a little bit differently? And are there other things that we can provide to people, whether it's employee sponsored or, whatever have you, or can we switch things up a bit? And so the executive director is like, okay, let's take a look at it. Let's do some research. And I'm like, well, how about we ask the employees? Like, ask them what they want and it's a younger workforce, maybe, life insurance and all this isn't as important to them as tuition remission, or do we have a strong retirement program, or, you just name it. And it was so interesting. The feedback that we have a discount program, the feedback we got was, we don't even need, that's not important to us. We want to have tuition remission. We want to be able to develop ourselves and get certifications. And it was just so, it just goes to show that, like, when you're doing things your way and you're assuming that things should be a certain way, when in reality, all you need to do is just stop and ask questions to people that are working with you and figure out, like, how can we make this work? So, but happy to talk to you more. I'll put my email in the chat here.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear like what those options could be. I mean, dental offices don't always offer all that much. Our office offers a lot, but if there's more things, like, I love that we have flex spending, like that's a little thing, and I don't think it costs the doctor anything, but
Right.
like, I'd love to hear like a list of things that we could ask the doctors for if there was an opportunity.
So you know what I could, yeah. So we could look at like maybe some of those questions of like what to ask folks, and you'd want to work with like your benefit broker a little bit. And then I've got, which I need to make an appointment with, Perks, which is an organization that is beyond, they usually have conferences, which they don't now, but all different benefits that are outside your fringe benefits.
Awesome.
Yeah, so they're a good resource too.
Before she goes, I just want to let her know, we're working now very closely with Megan, and I can't recommend enough the support, even just as a manager or owner of my company. I mean, all the hard stuff is great. We've totally revised our employee manual. We feel really confident now that it's protecting us, all the good stuff, but just even to help learn and help me to learn how to be a better owner and a better manager and a better interviewer. So really, I strongly recommend that we take advantage of having her here and, work with her outside of this, because it's been really helpful and wonderful for us.
Thanks, Nancy. It's been a pleasure.
I just had a session this morning. It's therapy. Let's call it what it is. It's therapy. It's work therapy.
A question. Do you also do the kind of like revise of the employees handbook?
Yeah.
That's what we just did. Yep.
Yeah, so what we do is we'll go through, either we'll do a brand new one, or we'll go through your existing, write our comments in where you think you need to tease it out a little bit, maybe where there's questions, update any laws that are there. We're not attorneys, but we, stay abreast of this stuff.
I need help with that because that's one of the tasks that the owner has asked me to do. He last time he got the employees handbook, it was 2001.
Oh,
And
Angela, call me.
Well, I think you need to call Megan and let her help you. She just did our manual over, and we thought we had a pretty good manual. Yeah, not so much.
So I do need help with that. So
Yeah.
that would be great if we can get into a call.
Yeah,
That's a huge
absolutely.
task for him to put on you.
He has a lot of high expectations. He's the only owner. We are 27 employees. And he always has, high expectations. The staff is very happy that I am the office manager because I'm always there for them. He's not the type of gentleman that he will say thank you if you did something. He always will tell you it could have been better. It can be better. But he never say good job. He's not the type of guy that will say good job. I kind of got used to. I've been there 18 years, so I never wait for a thank you. I never wait for give me the pat on the back. None of that. But I'm there for the ones that always need that.
Right. Well, Blake gives you a pat on the back. Blake's working very closely. He's there every weekend. He gives you a big pat on the back. I can tell you that.
Yes. So, but he always wants the best, and he always is pushing the envelope to the highest. And one of my tasks to do is the employees handbook.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing, and think about how much that you're learning and putting like different notches on your belt, which is so invaluable, or so valuable, I should say. And then, yeah, give me a call on that. I will leave two things. I just finished, which I'm very proud of myself. I didn't think I was going to finish it. A certification with eCornell, if any of you have ever heard of them. So it's Cornell, but they have many different certifications. And I want to say it runs from like 1,200 to 2,500. Let's just say like that's the range for these different certifications. And I just finished one on leading remote teams, and it's 7 courses, they're 2-week stints, but it holds you accountable enough, but there's enough flexibility. And it's been fantastic. It's all remote. There's work that needs to be done. There's interaction. You meet different people. It's all obviously remote doing that. But it was a really good experience, and I had really great takeaways, and I think it's a good investment. Just for listening to some of you here that are wearing some different hats, it may be beneficial, and they have so many different ones. And then I also am hosting a cafe hour on the 21st, which is for any leaders or HR professionals, anybody that assumes HR responsibilities. The max is 20 people. I'm sorry, I've got a remote child in the other room. I can hear him. I don't know if you can. He must be doing their exercises. He's 5.
I always think of him as so much older.
I know.
What's that?
He's really much more mature than 5.
He's very mature. He's like my little old man.
Yeah. So
Um,
nice.
he tells me when I'm forgetting my cell phone, Mom, your cell phone, it's in your office. He's sweetie. But anyhow, it's really an opportunity to come together and to similar to what we're talking about, but we do it in a little bit of a different format. With, what different relevant things are people struggling with, and we kind of vote on what's the topic we want to start with and slide it over and exhaust that. And then I send out the recording afterwards in a summary. And that also provides like some different resources. So you're welcome to come. I'll send that link as well. And I'm happy to have sidebar conversations with any of you here on the call. So thank you so much. And
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Megan.
weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Is it okay
Alrighty.
if I stay on a little bit?
Oh, of course. You want to hear what Lisa has to say.
I do. I'm gonna have to hop off, but I want to hear Lisa. This is so great. I get to see her.
Yeah. So I want to just say
We'll make
thank you
another cup of
for being so patient. She was booked for April of last year when when our whole world went. And so we've been looking forward to actually having her come back. She was going to be live in our office then. That didn't happen, of course. So Lisa has written a book, and she's also been featured in quite a few publications. I wrote about them. I don't have them in front of me today, but Lisa, you can tell us about that. So Lisa, please introduce yourself better than I just did and talk to us about organization.
Thanks, Pam. I'm so thrilled to be here. So thank you again for inviting me. It's so funny because I'm listening to all of these conversations this morning. So I have been a professional organizer. I work with both residential and commercial clients to really help them find the space and the time to have the businesses and the lives that they really want. But the most interesting part of that is prior to starting my business, I was a recruiter for 10 years. And so, yeah, right. So I came from the dark side, Megan, as we like to say. So
why didn't you say anything?
Yeah, well, because it's just so interesting to hear all of the conversations, and the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? Because it really always comes down to communication, right? It is about communication. It's about, we go into a situation with our assumptions or our own agenda, and the person on the other side has their own assumptions and their own agenda as well. And it's not that there's anything nefarious about that. It's just, I think I know what I know, right? But oftentimes what I find with my clients, what I found over this last decade, is that we don't know what we don't know. And so many of my clients that I work with they're dental offices, they are chiropractors, they're lawyers, they're other, they're tech professionals, they're all kinds of amazing professionals, and they're very good at what they do. They're very good at their profession. What they're not good are the other pieces of it. They're not necessarily as good at the organization or the HR or the communication piece. So what I do with my clients is to help them fill in that piece. Some people would say, competency in one area doesn't necessarily translate to competency in another. But I like the way my grandmother or my mother said it better, which is God doesn't give with both hands, right? God doesn't give with both hands, because I may be a great organizer, but I don't know anything about being a lawyer. And I may be able to, help you, create the space in the home or the office that makes you most productive. And yet, don't ask me to clean your teeth, because that's not my strength. So what I help my clients do is to really round out their skills, right? To help them continue to do what they do well, but to support them in a way that creates a structure, right? We talked a lot this morning about processes and procedures and structures. So I'm going to run through a very quick PowerPoint for you. Pam's going to let me do a little screen share, and there's going to be a few chuckles here because a lot of the things that we have already mentioned this morning are going to kind of come up in this conversation. So let's see if we can make this happen.
I'm making you the host.
All right, so here we go. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. Oh, that was on the first try, no less. All right, thank you. So again, one of the things that I find most interesting is that I always like to start with a statistic. And the statistic is that the average American spends 40 minutes a day looking for something that they can't find. 40 minutes a day.
That's all?
Yeah,
That's
really.
all. Well, that's on average. I'm going to give you the average. So if I'm at 2 minutes, then somebody else might be at an hour and 15 minutes, right? So that's an average time. So think about your average day at the office or even your average day at home. I mean, how much time do you spend looking for something? It could be your car keys, it could be a file, it could be a document, it could be, your phone charger, your computer charger, all of those things. So if you average those out to an average week, that's like 5.5 hours a week. 5.5 hours a week that you are spending simply trying to find things. Organizing isn't boxes and bins. It's not complicated filing systems. Being organized is finding my things when I need it so I can go out and live my best life. So Pam gave me a plug, so I'm gonna do it. So this is my book. It's called More Space, More Time, More Joy, Organizing Your Best Life. This was published back in August of 2019. And so since then, I've really been, doing a lot of these sort of presentations to really talk about the power of organizing. And when you think about being organized in your home, there's a lot of overlap, obviously, with the skills or the needs that we might find in our offices. So it's kind of a run through this presentation. Think about it sort of in a broad perspective, how it relates both to your offices, to your work to your work environments, and also to your home. So again, funny, we start here. We're going to start with redundancy. So redundancy. There is no such thing as having too much redundancy. And it's so interesting. One of the things I heard Angela say was, I wish that, when I was in this particular role, even though you've been at the same company for a really long time, you didn't always know the information now that you have in this different role. And so what tends to happen in organizations is that we rely on one system, right? And it's that over-reliance on that one system that can get us into trouble, because if that technology system doesn't work, if the procedures break down, or gosh forbid, there's something that changes in the personnel, we've lost that. Right. And we're going to talk a lot about that today, because you've already talked about how it's almost like a community history or the history of your organization. It's really important. And we want to make sure there's redundancies. When I talk about backing up your data, and I know Pam, actually I met Pam through Brian McPhee, right? It's through System Solution Corps. If you don't have a great tech person, get a great tech person, because they're, especially in this sort of dispersed work environment that many of us have experienced more recently, there's nothing more important than data. And it is so important. And I have clients that say, oh, it's okay, I back up. How do you back up? Well, I think it's a cloud, and they kind of do this. And I said, great, cloud is wonderful. Where's your hard drive backup? Do you have on-site backup? Maybe. So redundancy when it comes to data is super, super important. You want to ideally be doing a cloud solution, but if you can't access the cloud for whatever reason, it's also great to have sort of a local physical backup. Most people use external hard drives. It used to be a tape system back in the day, but get a good tech person, because they're invaluable. So the next thing I would talk about is to rethink your floor space. I did a project during COVID with an insurance agency, and they happened to be down in Virginia. And we spent a lot of time talking about how they were using their space. So what I heard Nancy say was, when her company merged, right, you might have multiple offices, multiple work locations, and it's really important. That's actually a wonderful time to relook at your floor space. I know I have clients that, the office is here, but the printer's way down the hall. Well, why is that? That seems very inconvenient. And the answer is, it's always been that way, or I don't know, we've always done it that way. It really is an opportunity to revisit how you're using your floor space. There is nothing that makes me more insane than sort of that core jumble that's behind every terminal. a label maker is your best friend. Well, it's my best friend. I don't know if it's your best friend, but it's my best friend. So what I first urge all my clients to do is simply to label all of their monitors, all of the cords, all of those extra superfluous things, something that's plugged in. Because if you may know what it does, but you are relying on your information. And if somebody else comes in and needs to fix it or needs to access to it, this mess is not how you want to go. So which brings me to the next point. Again, something that we just touched on that Megan talked about, and Nancy talked about the value of doing it, which is updating your procedures in your standard, your procedures manual, your employee handbook, and all those other things. The challenge with organizations that are smaller and have grown more organically is there's usually one person that's sort of the brain trust, right? What I heard Kim say was that many of the employees or many of the folks at her place have been there for a really long time. That's great. But when your information of the history of the organization or how we do things is really resting with one person, that's a liability for your organization, right? We always use the term, what happens if you get hit by a bus tomorrow? And people always say, well, that's not gonna happen. I say, it's probably not, but something else might happen to you or might impede you from being here to work. So it is crucial that you start to create, if you have not already, or as we talked about with Angela, continue to update those documents. It can be an employee handbook. Google Docs is a wonderful way to do it. I'm also president of a networking organization, and we have a Google Doc with all of our processes and procedures, and every board member, from the marketing to the all the different parts of that board, we're required, we ask that everybody update their processes and procedures, because you've got it in your head, but that does me no good. It does me no good when you leave the board and I don't know. It does me no good. It does the organization no good. So it's really important, again, to continue to do a brain dump on something like that. And also to be open, especially in the past year plus during COVID, things have changed dramatically. I don't need to tell any of you that. I mean, your work in healthcare has been impacted way more than most people. So you've made changes, and it is important that you continue to document those changes, right? Everything has moved at such a fast pace. That we created all these adaptives and these workarounds and all of these things, which are wonderful, but it is really important to also be sure that you are continuing to update that manual and keep up to date on that. Organizing, I think this is important, and I think this is an important step because people envision that, like updating your employee manual or onboarding a new employee or organizing, it's a one and done, right? I've done it, I can let it go. I don't have to worry about it for the next 4 or 5 years or whatever period of time. The reality is organizing isn't a one and done. It's an ongoing process, and it should be an ongoing process, because it's like any environment where there is some change and pivoting and challenging situations. You want to make sure that you are continuing with that. So I always recommend to clients, even I have clients that are on a maintenance program, like we'll work together for a period of time and we meet once a month or every other month to really go through and equalize all of that. So again, same thing, to go through, spend a few minutes every day equalizing your space so that you can be most productive. You all obviously have different, requirements around, health and wellness and hygiene and all of that. But a messy workspace, it's really hard to work in a messy workspace, and it's never a good visual. When I walk into an office and I see a mess behind the front desk, that does not make, now that person may be the most competent person on the planet. That may be the, a very efficient, productive, and amazing organization. But the first thing I think is this place, they do not know what they're doing, because that mess signifies to me that they're disorganized and there might be a problem. That may be an unfair assessment, but again, that's just my assessment. So again, file piles, right? So we pile things up on our desk and to try to get to them. Again, this is the look that you kind of want to avoid, because it doesn't instill confidence in people. The next couple are really deal with sort of staying updated, right? Again, some themes that we've talked about. I was recently consulting with a chiropractor's office, and when you walk, before you walk in, they print out the daily registration, and then they print out the daily sheet, and then so paper bound, it was painful. And when I asked the question, why are you, how about maybe using a tablet or maybe checking people in, at the front desk, not through paper? The answer again is we've always done it. So what they had, and what a lot of offices have, is just this glut of paperwork, absolute so much paperwork. So when we are growing organically, or when are growing through acquisition or through the growth of the business, it is important to make sure that your files are updated. I understand my sister-in-law actually does this over at Socher Hospital. She's responsible for all of the electronic records. So a lot of records have gone electronic, but there's still a lot of paper backlog, even if it's just, office procedures and employee files. It really is important to keep updated on those. I have a client who was acquired and sold their business to a larger national organization, and we were going through the files. And he had employee files in his desk drawer, crowding up his desk drawer. I said, well, talk to me about these. Do we need to hold on to these? And he said, oh, that guy hasn't worked here in 15 years. I said, well, then you probably don't need to use your valuable drawer space for this employee file. So you want to have what we call active files, right? Your working files, the things that you need to touch all the time, and then historic files. Those are things you may need to hold on to, if it's a tax document or it's an employee, employee file, but it doesn't need to be front and center in your desk. So when this client shut down their business, in one tax year, we recently went to the storage unit and took away 126 pounds. 126 pounds of shredding because it had just been accumulated. They didn't know what to do with it. They didn't want to get rid of it. They didn't really think about it. So they just stuck it in a box. So for 1 year, 126 pounds of shredding. So avoid that like the plague, because that's a lot of storage space. So the last thing I'm going to talk about today is reclaiming valuable space. So what you see here in this picture, it's a real picture. This is my porch. We went to this client's storage unit because they have to retain their records for 7 years, even though the business no longer exists. And when the company dissolved, when he moved out of the space, he took all of the technology and he just threw it into his storage unit. So what we did in order to reclaim that space, to be able to extract the paperwork that we needed to, we opened up, I think we had 6 terminals, extracted all of those hard drives and destroyed them. And then we went ahead and took those empty cases to Staples to be recycled. So I don't know if you know that, but Staples and Best Buy will take your electronics. And I'm also going to share this with Pam. Tomorrow, Saturday, Holy Family Church in Duxbury, in their parking lot, are having an electronics drive. You can bring anything with a cord. It can be a tablet, it can be a laptop. I'm going to step back from that. I wouldn't recommend dropping off anything that has a drive in it that you might have saved information on, but they'll take a printer, they'll take a monitor. If you've wiped the hard drive or like this picture, you've destroyed the hard drive, you want to give them the shell, they're doing a drive. It is free. They're asking for donations. It's for the Cub Scouts, but tomorrow, Holy Family Church in Duxbury, they're going to do something like this. So one of the reasons we do something like this is for, number one, you want to be able to recycle things. I had a client who had she was in the printing business and had shut down an office and had boxes and boxes of phone systems. And I said, what are you going to do? And she said, I said, are we ready to let this go? And she said, that's worth money. And I said, it's not worth money when it's sitting in your garage. So it's not worth money. So if you have older technology, it might be a printer, it might be a phone system. It's really important you move that on sooner than later, because it's true of anything. It's your old phone, it's your iPod, it's anything. The longer technology sits, the less value it has. So if you have closets, most people do, full of old technology, we call them technology graveyards. If you have those, you're wasting space. You're wasting a lot of space. A lot of my work right now is with businesses that are never going back 100% into their office. And so they're looking at their office space to see to see where they can cut back on their office space. So if you've got a cabinet or a room or some storage space that's full of technology that you are never going to use, now is a great time to take a look at that, to clean it out in order to make use of that valuable space. Megan, do you have a couple people with questions? Okay.
Just back to the Holy Family thing.
Yeah.
I have a bag in the basement of just cords. I have no idea what they go to. Would they take those or just throw them away?
They will take them, and that's a great question, Kim. We call that techno trash, yes, tomorrow you can take it to Holy Family Church, and I do have a flyer. Someone took a snapshot. It's not a great one, but I will send it to Pam, and Pam can send it out to everyone with all of the details and the location and all of that.
What
Yes,
about TVs?
anything with a cord.
Okay.
Anything with a cord. Again, I would caution against giving a laptop or a desktop unless you have cleared that hard drive. But anything, even a cord, and I have clients that, as we're going through their space, they are, they're pulling out cords, and I'll say, what does this go to? They say, I don't know. It's one of those old plugins for your phone, phone plug-in for your car. That's the challenge. There's no tag on it. We're looking at the connectors, and we are wasting time is basically what we're doing. So mark it with a, with a label maker or a piece of masking tape. If that's all you have, that's fine too. But if you can't identify it, and 9 times out of 10, we say, I don't know what it is. I can't identify it. We've wasted time. Please don't throw those in the trash. You can take those to Best Buy, you can take them to Staples, and they will recycle them for you. Tomorrow is a bulk recycling, pretty much just take it and give it to them. So yes, TVs, yes, technology. Again, please don't take your personal computers, because that's a bad thing. Megan, did you have a question? I saw your
I
hand up
also
too.
wanted, while you're right on this subject,
Yeah.
Depending on your printer, if your printer has never been connected to the internet, it may have valuable information still on it. So that's another thing you have to be careful of.
Oh, that's a
Depending
good
on
one.
what type of printer. Now, of
Okay.
course, the big printer here, we would never drag down to any place, but you have to be careful that
Yeah.
it does store some information, the newer ones.
Really?
And you're right, Pam, because those are connected. They're also connected to your Wi-Fi network. So there might be some sort of residual information in there. But if it's, it's your home one or something like that. But yes, especially if it's an office situation, that's why we need a good tech person. That's why we all need a Brian McPhee in our lives.
Or Act Smart IT.
Act Smart IT,
Yeah.
Brian, all of these people help you make your life easier. These are all of the people that support your business moving forward so that you can do what you do better, because I'm not an IT person. I'm not an HR person. What I do and what I help my clients do is to fill in those experiences and the technology and the skills around them. So thank you, Pam. That's a great point. And I didn't realize that about the printer. So that's real helpful. Yeah, Megan, did you have a question?
I do. So quick one. Do you do space consulting?
Yeah, so we do. I do. That's the royal we, just for the record. It is me. I do. And that's, I think, like everybody has been talking about today, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you don't have to look at the mess that was on my porch, which is now thankfully gone. So I'm going to stop that. Yeah, so it's like what we were talking about earlier. You have worked in your environments for so long, it's hard to see the forest through the trees. So what I do with a client is try to come in and I'm going to go back to that communication piece that I mentioned way in the beginning, which is, I want to understand what your goals are. I'm trying to understand what you're trying to get to, because sometimes a client will say, gee, we're just not efficient. The problem must be our technology. And I'll say, well, if it's technology, well, let's call Pam and let's get them in here. But it might not be that. It might be your processes and procedures. And sometimes it is often the space, and it is about you've always set it up. It's always been this way. My office has always been here, and the conference room's always been down there. And that's the way it's always been. But I get to offer a different perspective. I'm not wedded to anything. I don't come in with my own, belief of how it should be. So I'm able to take that sort of 10,000 foot view of how could this work more efficiently for you? So that's a long answer to your short question, is absolutely. And again, I do it both on the business side, on the commercial space, as well as on the residential. And commercial footprint is shrinking, right? The biggest glut out there is commercial office space. And smartly, all companies, huge companies to smaller companies, are saying, we don't need the kind of office space that we used to have. Our employees are never coming back here full time. So that's a huge opportunity for any business to reduce their overhead cost by really cutting down on the office space, and to use it more efficiently, while they're there. So,
Okay. Yeah, just because I've heard a few of clients that have said, they want to restructure their office space to be more hoteling, and we're going to have touchdowns, and how it's just configured isn't that. So they've looked for space consultants, and I've only have 2. So if you're in that as well, then shoot me an email too, so I can share your contact.
I will. Thank you, Megan.
This is great. I've got to hop off, but it was a good presentation, and thank you so much.
Nice to see you, Megan.
You too.
So again, that goes back to, what Megan's talking about, is the best use of the space is if you're wasting space by, having old office furniture or old technology, sitting in a closet or a cubby. Now with, regardless of whether you have your staff back full time, one of the things Pam said to me at the very beginning of our conversation today was we had to get rid of so much stuff in order to bring all of our people back so that we can be socially distanced. That's never going away. The Cube Farm is not going to be here for a very, very long time, if ever. So if you have valuable office space, if you have valuable space at all, and all space is valuable, let me put it that way. It could be a room in your home, it could be your basement, it could be your closet, the utility closet at your office space. If it's full of stuff that you're not using and you're not touching, and it has zero value for you, it's really a great time to think about getting rid of that and moving on from it.
Where are you located, Lisa?
Yeah. So I'm in the South Shore. I'm in Cohasset. So most of my clients, I work sort of from, I like to say, Quincy to Cape Cod.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a great space to be in. It's a great both physical and workspace to be in, because there's so many great small businesses that I've worked with over the years. And I love doing that, because making people more efficient really is what organizing is all about. It's not, again, it's not, everybody loves a Crate and Barrel, catalog, and everybody wants to look like Pottery Barn, but that's not real life. I tell my clients all the time, that is not real life.
Yeah.
Real life can be messy and it's busy. And how do you become more efficient with your time and your space so that you can do more of the really important things? Go out and do this good stuff. So, so that's it. So thank you, Pam, for inviting me.
936 Winter Street. I need you.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to throw my information here in the chat. If anybody would like to just reach out, and again, just has an.
I'll also send it with the email that I send up after this too.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So I think it's interesting when you bring something to the forefront. I'm looking around, I feel incredibly claustrophobic right now. Like these things, and I'm thinking, why do I even have those here? So thank you for just like bringing it to the forefront, so that those of us that are here can actually remember that we should be doing a better job of being organized in our space.
If you could see this desk, my husband's desk in front of me, it does not, you can't even see the desk.
And here's what I always say, organizing is an intuitive process. What works for me doesn't work for everyone. And I do have clients that are very, especially my creatives and my tactiles, my tactile people love to touch their stuff and they need to have it out. And if that works for you, that works for you. I never tell, there is no one way to organize. And anyone that tells you that there's one way to organize and you must do it this way, I would say, I would disagree with that. If it's working for you, it's working for you. If that's working for your husband, Kim, that's great. If he's and yeah,
two?
if
you need two,
yeah, exactly.
Willie
But if there's a lot of
CDs, like,
if
come
you,
on.
Oh,
the
yeah.
CDs,
Yeah,
yeah,
husband.
I love the CDs.
I love
CDs
that.
are good. So yeah. So please reach out. Happy to ask a question. Happy to even, like, I was on FaceTime with someone yesterday, just a quick, sort of walk me through my space, and we were able to, come up with some solutions for her. So happy to help.
Great.
Yeah. I kind of want to hide that shelf unit behind me in some way right now.
Virtual backgrounds, they're the way to go.
Oh, God, but mine are very fuzzy. I don't know. Yours looks great. Mine gets super fuzzy. You know what I mean? And some of them
Yeah.
just work better.
I've got to run. Have
Bye,
a great
Kim.
weekend, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
I'm going
Kim.
to listen to the end of this so I get to hear the
Thank
very
you.
end.
Thank
And
you.
Thank
Kim,
you.
I have someone, mine is exactly like yours. Mhm.
This,
Yep,
this isn't mine. This is Paul's, not me.
right, but I have one who is, yep.
Really?
Oh my God.
That doesn't belong on the desk.
I'm wondering if he's a carpenter, 2 measuring tapes,
No,
measure
he's
twice,
not.
cut once.
He's a salesman, but he's very handy. So what he was doing with those. How
I
about
want to
these?
show you my
There's 2
husband.
keyboards. 2 keyboards. Like, obviously this one's
He's
not working.
prepared. He's just prepared.
I just got to show one thing.
I wouldn't out my husband, no, but I just sent him a text that said, our guest speaker is an organizer, just saying.
Everybody could use a little organization.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got that place. And even I have my own spots, and trust me, my family loves to call me out on it. So
Sure.
I
yeah.
like that.
Oh,
Oh, come on.
Just yelled at me. He said the other keyboard is for her. She likes to hit it.
Oh, look at that face. What a cutie.
Oh, my goodness.
Say hi to everyone,
She
Charlie.
is
Oh,
beautiful.
Say hi.
oh,
Look at that on her head. That's just adorable.
so perfect.
oh, she's
Great, thank you all.
beautiful.
All
So
right.
good to see you.
Kim, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. So now, thank you so much, Lisa. I'm so
Yes,
glad
thank you. That was great.
Finally, after all this time. But right now, does anybody have anything else that they want to talk about? And I'll turn off the recording. And if you have anything that you want to ask somebody here that you really don't want publicized, I'll do that right now. So anyway, I was going to say thank you to everybody on this recording, and hopefully we'll talk about seeing you next month. So I'll stop the recording.
Okay.
Lexi will clean this all up.